We like to call it the Supernatural Hour. And now, our hosts.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another amazing episode of the Supernatural Hour. I'm Tim.
I'm Raven.
I'm Peaches.
I'm Chad.
Our topic this week is this awesome island off the coast of Italy that is near Venice, I believe. And it was originated in, well, I mean, it's been there forever, I guess. But it was first settled in 421.
See, this is one of the places that's on my bucket list of places to ghost hunt.
Well, that would be fun, but unfortunately, as of right now, it is off limits, and it is basically considered trespassing. If you go there, I'm sure you can get permission.
So kind of like the rest of the world right now.
Yeah, yes.
But not for that reason.
But for a different reason. You know, it's funny because, everyone's on lockdown because of COVID-19. This particular island that we're going to be talking about was actually used to house people during the Black Plague and the Bubonic Plague. And that island is actually called Pavelia Island. Now, it's spelled Poveglia, but from the videos and stuff I've watched, they don't pronounce the G. It's not Poveglia, it's Pavelia.
So I always said Poveglia, and now I'm sad.
That's what I was saying too, but just watching videos and hearing an actual dude from Italy saying Pavelia, I'm going to go with that. So
it's kind of like bologna. I guess you don't say the G in that.
Bologna.
That looks Italian.
Bologna's disgusting.
It is.
It's just leftover meat of stuff.
Okay, so Pavelia, no G.
Pavelia. So,
Silent G.
I guess for a long time it was, it's been used as a refuge, it's been used as a stronghold, a place of exile, like I said, where they dumped the diseased. Basically,
you just go there to die.
Yeah, pretty much. But originally, it was actually a place where people went to escape from barbaric invaders. So it was kind of like a safe haven back in the day, originally, and it was perfect for getting away from things and being kind of like fortified and safe because it's such a small island.
And you can see things from all over, and if you look at it, and I don't know when these forts originated, but you do see, nowadays towers at certain places, and it's flat-ish. And so you get in these watchtowers and you can see from quite a ways, so you'd be able to protect it quite easily.
Well, and it was very easily defendable, and basically it just, because of how small it wasn't really worth anyone's time to try to invade the island. Like, there wasn't really much. You get the island and then you're like, okay, great, I have this island. Now what? Right?
Yeah,
so
didn't have like a great port or mining rights on it or anything.
Yeah, but the city used it as a way to keep invaders out because they had to come through that area, and they actually set up kind of a little island, a man-made island. One of the three. There's three islands, and one of them is actually a man-made island, and it was
like Pentagon shaped.
Yeah, it's the fortification with the Pentagon shape, so that it could be used for fortifications.
Maybe a hexagon, some sort of a gon.
Yes, it was also a place to avoid laws and regulations and all those sorts of things from the mainland. So, if you wanted to be a rebel, that was the place to go.
It was so pretty, too. I would just go there to hang out.
But, eventually things kind of died down a little bit, and the island became abandoned again. There was nobody living there around the 14th century. Now, in 1348, the bubonic plague had actually hit Venice and Pavelia.
And I think they said it hit like 1 out of every 3 people.
Yes, the plague did actually kill 1 out of every 3 people. Now, Pavelia and other small islands that were near Venice were actually used as a place, like we said, to exile people that showed any signs of being sick whatsoever. They didn't necessarily have to have the plague. It's just like if you had a cough, you're going to the island, and basically
you were going to get the plague.
Pretty much, going to the island was a death sentence. Pretty much, like you were there and you stayed until you died. Like I don't think anyone ever came back
alive.
Now, what they would do is in the center of the island, they would actually take the dead and people that were too sick and that were actually going to die, and they burned everybody just in the center of this island. And and it wasn't just the people. It wasn't just the people that were dying on the island. Anyone that died in Venice or nearby, they were actually they would boat over the dead people and burn everybody there on Pavelia Island. And
That's
because
sweet
of this,
them.
I think they did the same thing again when the Black Plague hit. They did the same thing. They used the island for the same reason, and they sent people over there and they'd burn the bodies over there. And because of all of this, you really can't see the soil in certain areas of the island. Basically, when you're walking around the island, you're not walking on dirt. You're walking on the ashes of dead people. That's how many people died there. There's apparently about 100,000 people that died on the island alone. I don't know the exact number of how many people that were actually burned on the island.
Yeah, and it's not a very big island. So you take 100,000 people plus whoever they just shipped over to get rid of the bodies to burn. That's
That's a lot.
a lot. And then, and I've watched a couple different shows, and I don't remember which show it was, but they actually went out to, kind of like beach, like for the lack of a better term. But they just kind of raked their hands through the sand, and they brought up just a dozen or more little chunks of bone, big enough that you could tell that it was bone, and you could tell it was not sand, and it was just sad and creepy. And
Stick your hands in there.
Yeah, and the fishermen don't fish in the area because they get their nets caught with and bring up bones and different things too.
Now, what's interesting is on the island, even though you have all of these ashes and stuff like that, because of the human remains, there is still vegetation that survives there. And one of them is actually a grape vineyard. So every year, there's actually people that go out and pick the grapes and use it to make wine.
it's like you're drinking dead people.
Yeah.
I don't drink wine, but that just seems creepy.
I'm okay with eating people, so I guess I'd be okay with drinking them.
That just sounds all sorts of right.
You know what? I'm survivalist. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's totally fine. I would probably kill you and eat you too if I had to.
However, what else was it used for? I think.
Well, in 1922, they erected a mental hospital, and that's again. It was. I don't think this was a. It's not a very happy island. I can tell you that right now. The mental institution, it wasn't a place really that was used to help people. It was another place to, kind of like Waverly back in the day.
Well, it's like they didn't know what to do with people with mental issues, and so they just built these
Stored
places
them.
to get rid of them. It's like, let's get rid of them, which I think is really sad.
Yeah, I mean, that's like I said, they did the same thing with Waverly when Waverly became an old folks home. It was more or less just like, we don't want to deal with you anymore. Have fun.
Yep. Well, yeah, and then they would do, not only would they not really help them, but there was a crazy doctor or two that would do experiments on people, which is just so wrong.
Oh. Well, they're dying anyway. I don't know if that's good or bad to get them to that
Yeah,
next plane faster.
Yeah, they would do like experimental lobotomies and experimental thises and thatses, and I kind of got the impression that it was inhumane. I mean, it's one thing if if like I were to go to the University of Utah and say, yes, I would like to do experiments,
So not like research experiments.
to further science. This was just like, ooh, we've got someone that's handicapped and they don't know any better, and I get the impression that they didn't really use the anesthesia or
Sound like an evil.
painkiller or had permission. I think it was just, ooh, here's a body, let's do stuff.
Well, this dude apparently also saved his really dark experiments for his quote-unquote special patients. He would actually take them up to the bell tower, which is no longer there. They tore the bell tower down.
Lame.
But they don't know exactly what he did in this bell tower, but the screams of his patients could be heard by everybody on the island. So whatever he was doing was obviously excruciating. Now, eventually, karma caught up to him, and he began to suffer his own mental torture and was pursued by the island's multitude of ghosts. Now, eventually, he ended up losing his mind, and he climbed to the top of the bell tower and threw himself off.
Well, he deserved it.
That's, some people actually say that he may have been pushed by an angry spirit or by some of his patients. They don't know exactly, but he did basically pitch himself off the top of the tower and die.
Lovely.
Apparently, a nurse supposedly witnessed the fall and claimed that he initially survived, but a mist came over the body and choked him to death. And even after all of this, the hospital,
twisted.
even after all of this happened, The hospital stayed open until 1968.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Okay. That's really sad.
And I know at one point, from then on, I think it was turned into an old folks home. Just like Waverly was. And again, it was still a place to be like, hey, Grandpa, have fun.
Love you. See ya.
It's one of those islands of hell.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, they said that Pavelia was actually obviously the most haunted island in the world, if not the most haunted place in the world.
I heard that too.
And
I don't know about that.
it's got to be up there within the top 5, I would say, just with hundreds of thousands of people that
I could see
died and bodies burned on this island, and it's such a small area. It's entirely possible it's within the top 5 of the most haunted places in the world.
Probably one of the at least one of the most concentrated hauntings.
Right, I would say top 5 because I mean, Waverly is highly
So what is
haunted.
Waverly?
Also, Waverly Hills Sanatorium.
Okay.
It's in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah, it was a tuberculosis hospital originally, and we did cover this on one of the episodes last year. But there were so many people that died there that they created this tunnel out the back. They called it the body chute or the death tunnel because so many people were dying daily, and it was very discouraging to see people carted out the front and ambulances and carried away. So to avoid other patients seeing all these people dead and being removed, they carted them out through the body chute. And Waverly, again, it became an old folks home where people were tortured there.
Wasn't it like
as well.
a tuberculosis?
Yeah, it was a tuberculosis hospital up until they found a cure for tuberculosis and it was eradicated, and so there was no need for the hospital anymore. But Poveglia Island it was essentially used for the same thing, like the mental hospital and the old folks home. And I don't remember if the patients were tortured as in the old folks home, but kind of judging on the way things were in the island before, it's very likely.
All that negativity and yeah.
Oh. Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because there's Pavelia, there's Waverly, and I can't think of any names off the top of my head, but I just, when you're looking for paranormal stuff online, it seems like this is a very common thread of sanatorium, old folks home,
Well, hell, here in Utah, we've got Asylum 49.
Yeah.
It's the old Tooele Hospital. I don't know. Through some of my investigations, I don't have any actual historical evidence to back this up. But during one of my investigations, I believe that there was a doctor there that did like to torture his patients and kill them and make it look like it was an accident or that they died of natural causes.
He would botch surgeries and things like that. When the patients would go in, he would purposely botch them.
That was the information I got during the investigation. I don't think I've ever discussed this with you before either.
No, and he was kind of like a racist. So if you weren't white and right, then he would botch your surgery.
So that's kind of cool to have that validated by somebody else. That I've never discussed this with you before, but I remember I've told some people what I thought he looked like. He was wearing... if you've ever seen Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And there's the sheriff with those weird, like, circular, dark sunglasses. That's what his eyes look like to me. And he was wearing, like, a black suit with a thin black tie. But, yeah, it was just this dude at that hospital, from what I gathered, he enjoyed killing people. And he would make it look like it was an accident while they were being surgerized.
I don't want a doctor like that, ever.
I don't think it's as easy to get away with now as it was back then.
But also another place here in Utah that's been multiple things is the Family Tree Restaurant. It's been a lot of different things, and a lot of crazy things have happened there also.
Yes. I mean, that place was like the first ever like bus stop, post office.
It was a brothel. It was all
they
kinds
had
of
like
things.
illegal gambling and fight clubs and stuff in the basement, and that place has got a lot going on with it, and it's for sale for $350,000. If anyone wants to buy it and donate it to us, we'd greatly appreciate it.
Pavelia's it's up for sale too. I don't know how much it's going for sale.
I think
for.
they said 500,000 or
That's
450,000.
really not very much. You think someone would snap that right up?
For an entire island. I don't know if I'd want a death island.
I know Zach Bagans would.
I
Let's
know, but
get a hold of him.
You sell tickets to go. You can make your $500,000 back pretty quick.
That's true.
Probably.
So one thing I noticed in a lot of the shows that I've watched about it recently, just to kind of get it back fresh in my memory, are people that go to it. And it's interesting because there's only two kind of people that go here. There's the ones that find fishermen, or people with boats on the mainland, and pay them to take them over. And most of these fishermen, refuse to be on camera and are like, we're going to drop you off at this time. We're going to come back and get you if you're not there. I mean, the locals are actually quite scared of this island. But I do think, even though it's off limits, I do think the Italian government, and this is just me speculating, I don't know for sure. So if I'm wrong, don't call me out on it. It seems like they do offer a lot of tours, because a lot of the little clips that we watched on YouTube and stuff, are groups that were, there and not necessarily hiding. And I know
it seems
Zach,
sanctioned in some way.
Yeah, so I don't think you can just willy-nilly hop in a boat and go there, but if you wanted to, if you went through the proper channels, I think you probably
and have the
could.
money, then yes, you could go over there.
I'm
It's
sure
all
if you
about
threw the
this.
Italian government
The money.
because there was an episode of Ghost Adventures where Zach Bagans and crew were on Pavelia Island doing an episode. So
Yeah, and one of the ones
that probably wasn't done guerrilla tactic wise. I mean, I'm sure because you don't have that kind of an operation without people knowing about it, the authorities knowing about
Right.
it.
And one of the little groups we watched was just, it was a lady, and you could tell she had a male companion. And she said, now, we're here with a group, so, if you see other people, there's not people that live here, it's people that's in our group. And, the way they were talking, you could tell that they were there, sanctioned. They had somehow gotten permission or paid, or which is kind of what made me speculate. So something I should have looked up before we podcasted.
that's okay. One of the other
I'll find
historical
out.
aspects of the island, which I thought was kind of neat, was Napoleon actually used it to store his ammunition and other supplies, because again, it was a great place to fortify and defend against invaders. And
I wonder
and
if
other
ghosts
stuff, so.
messed with him.
It's entirely possible that spirits did mess with Napoleon. I mean,
I wonder if there's any stories. That would be an interesting
we
thing
should
to
definitely
research.
look it up. We should have probably looked it up before the show, but
Well, it's not something I thought about until
Neither
this
did I.
very second.
Well, one of us needs to win the lottery so we can all go, and then I can go around and tell everybody what's there.
So here's something we were chatting about, as we were getting ready to podcast. But Zach Baggins, in Ghost Adventures, has actually done an episode there. And I love ruins. I love, when you go there and you see, well, it sounds like I've been there. When you watch the YouTube videos of people that have been there, there's open ceilings and holes in the wall, and there's these really pretty ivy vines growing all over the walls. I'm like, I wish that was like my backyard, because it's so cool. But Brandy watched recently this episode of Zach Baggins there, and she told us some things that I felt were very interesting. So I would like you to share that with our listeners.
Okay, so the few things that I did see there are a lot of spirits there. I mean, they're everywhere. And so, but they were down, I guess, in this, dungeon area. I don't quite remember where he said he was at, but you can see that it's underground, it's enclosed. And he's talking to a spirit, and he's standing there, and he's like, "Did you hear that?" And you could hear this lady, it was a woman, and she was screaming down the hallway. And you could hear it. I mean, you can hear a sound when you play the video. I could hear what she said, because she's talking in Italian, but she was asking for help. And he just kind of freaked out and was like, okay. And then there was another part where Zach was standing in a doorway, and he got angry. And I mean, really, really angry, and he, punched the wall and wasn't upset. And I just looked at him, and then I looked over to his left, and this big ominous shadow, and it had one green eye and one blue eye, but there was no real form or shape to it. But I think it being a malevolent spirit, that's what was controlling,
See, and
giving
that's-
him a psychic attack, basically.
That's the one part of that show that I remember, and I haven't watched that show since it came out. That episode since it came out, and he punches the wall, and the top part of his body's hunched over just a little bit.
Yeah.
He's a little bit bent at the waist. He punches the wall, and then he kind of looks over and up at the camera, and you look at his face, and it's like, oh, that is not Zach.
No, it wasn't. I've had that same experience, apparently, from what I've been told by others. So,
You've seen some of the video too.
and then they were in an open field area, and you can see them kind of have flashlights and looking around because there's tall grass and all these trees, and you hear some rustling, and then you hear what was one of their, one of their lanterns or something, and knocked over. And they're looking around trying to find out who's there. They're like, hello, is anybody, out there? And I started laughing. And Beaker was just like, I love watching you watch the videos, because when something happens, I have a facial reaction or I say something.
Or she giggles like a little girl. It's awesome.
So what it was like, it's a full-grown man. I mean, he's ginormous. He's probably taller than Tim. But his personality is more like a child. So he's probably like 6 or 7. So it's a man-child, literally. And he's thinking that they're playing a game. So he's trying to play with them. But they don't realize that that's what's happening.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it wasn't a very long clip, but that's what I got out of it. Very haunted. There's a lot of dark, but there's also a lot of light on there too. A lot of innocent, children and things that are running around like they have no idea that they're dead. So it'd be I want to visit there just for the sheer fact that it is the place that it is. But then at the same time, with my kind of gifts, it would probably be really scary for me at the same time.
You'd probably get very overwhelmed.
Well, if we do something like that, I'm going to build you a selenite vest for you to wear. Selenite vest, obsidian chaps. We'll do the whole 9 yards.
Okay.
So that's, I think that's pretty much it for Pavelia. I don't have anything else, do you?
No, I would love to go there. I need to go there. I need to go to the Edinburgh Vaults before I die.
Now, there's not a whole lot of detailed information that we could see, but, I mean, it'd be fun to go there.
Yeah, if you haven't checked out Pavelia Island, take a few minutes. You're all on lockdown. We know you have nothing better to do, unless you live in Utah. We're kind of getting freed up a little bit. But check out some YouTube videos. It's a really fascinating place. Sad, scary, beautiful, interesting. Go look it up.
I kind of want to check that haunted places and see if they have something on it.
They sure do.
Sweet.
I'll find it for you. So with that, I guess we'll call this an episode.
It's an episode.
Thanks.
That's a wrap.
Thank you. Peace out, butterflies.
See you next week.
You've been listening to the Supernatural Hour at AdvancedParanormal.com. The Supernatural Hour is part of the Radio Ronin network, found at RadioRonin.com. Copyright by Advanced Paranormal Services.